Hello and welcome to the USA Volleyball Show, the official podcast of USA Volleyball. Please leave a message after the beep. Oh, that was bad. Yep, I lost my voice yesterday. And that was a big crack. But yes, episode number 60. We are here at the big 60 here in March.
Wow.
First episode of the month of March. And it's also Women's History Month. Fun fact.
Big 60. That's crazy. Yeah, it sounds like you did a lot of coaching this week and lost your voice a little bit.
A lot of coaching, a lot of yelling, not yelling, but it's a loud convention.
Well, those convention centers get very loud.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Sunshine, the weekend to Sunshine in Orlando, and I did a few interviews throughout the weekend, and I realized that I just was yelling into the mic because it was so
the whole time. You don't even notice it.
Yeah, no, didn't even notice. But yeah, it was a great weekend at Sunshine. A lot of great competition, great clubs out there. Some awesome moments I was able to see. And found out some interesting things from the players, including favorite tournament snacks.
Ooh, what is that?
And
what is that?
Some of the big ones were acai bowls. Most convention centers have a little acai bowl.
What is that?
Vendor
Snack? Those are pretty big.
That's a pretty hefty snack. Yeah, that's a filling snack.
Got to circle back on that.
Goldfish was another popular answer. Fruits like grapes, I think was a popular one. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think cheese was really popular too, which was fun. But yeah, a little string cheese. There's one club had like a tackle box. It was literally like a fishing tackle box.
Really?
Just filled with like different snacks and like all the dividers, which was very smart, I thought.
That's cool. What I also see like some clubs do, like, when teams are on the sideline and, it's time for them to get on the court and they have, just like 40 hydro flasks all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
A ball goes there and it looks like a bowling alley. Well, some clubs have been bringing like those, like the crates, kind of like a milk crate with like the whole.
Oh, yeah.
And put them all in there and it's just like so easy to manage. I'm like, wow.
And carry around.
The neat freak in me loves that. I might have to buy something for my team.
Organizer in you? Yeah.
Organizer. Yeah, I love that.
That's very smart. Yeah, I think that's a hilarious sight when the ball just knocks over all the hydro flasks.
It stresses me out. I'm like, clean it up. But I did see your Hawaiian shirt. What did you think of that theme?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised with how many athletes, clubs, coaches, parents, and even officials got into the Hawaiian shirt Day spirit. And a lot of officials were up on the stands wearing Hawaiian shirts or leis. That was so cool. Yeah. A lot of clubs. Actually, one group of parents, one group of dads, had Hawaiian shirts with their daughters' faces on, like spread out,
really?
Which was super cool.
So embarrassing, but I know it was a good time.
I got a good photo of it on the USA Volleyball Instagram there, so you can check that out.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good to notice that teams are just all into the theme days, the Hawaiian shirt days, tropical shirt days. There may or may not be a mustache day for Opens 2023. We'll see. We'll see what I can pull off here. But there's that, and then like the pink shirt days or purple for certain awareness months and days and such like that too. They're all into it and they love it. So we need to incorporate that a lot more into these.
I think events teams should definitely keep continuing to do that. I was pleasantly surprised with how many people just got into it. It was awesome. Yeah,
good. Seems like it was some good competition, good event, good weather in Orlando.
Great weather. Which is rare for me when I travel to Florida. I feel like it's always just a torrential downpour whenever I go there, but it was great.
Yeah, I still have PTSD from last year. We had
we had
like I think close to either 10 or over 10 rain delays. And how do you have a rain delay inside at an indoor facility?
When there's a lot of rain outside, you have the rain delay inside.
Yeah. Not my best moment, not my favorite moment. Most memorable for sure.
Hey, it's in the past. It's in the past, and we had a great, successful sunshine this year, and that's what we can remember now. Well, let's continue on with this episode. Great to catch up with you as well. It's been a while. We're in the heat of it right now. Travel season right now.
Into the thick of it.
Into the thick of it. That was great. But yeah, in case you missed it, February was Region Commissioners Month. We had 3 different USA Volleyball regional commissioners, starting with Cody March from SEVA, that's Columbia Empire Region, Jen Armson Dyer from Badger Region, and our most recent episode with Steve Meath from Gateway Region. Be sure to check out all those episodes as we dive into their roles as USAV commissioners, regional commissioners, and talk about what they're doing to help grow the game and so much more from them. For more info on USAV regions, and how you can become a member, visit usavolleyball.org and check out those episodes, I should say, on your favorite podcast platform, or you can watch them on the USA Volleyball YouTube channel as well. Let's move on to news with Hughes.
The 2023 USA Volleyball Beach National Championship will return to Fort Lauderdale, Florida on July 18th through the 23rd. Registration is now open on usavbracketpal.com. All questions can be directed to beachevents@usav.org. Are you interested in men's college volleyball? Because I know I am. Love it. Check out our website for weekly roundups to stay up to date on results, rankings, and key matchups, and much, much more. More on these and all other news items at always usavolleyball.org.
Now, on to today's show. Back in December, we interviewed several guests live from the 2022 AVCA Convention. Of those awesome guests that we interviewed, 2 of them will be featured in this episode with Brooke Rundle of Equality Coaching Alliance and Marie Zidek from DePaul University. She's the head coach there. They talk about their backgrounds in volleyball, their involvement in the Equality Coaching Alliance, the work they're doing to support the LGBTQ plus community, and much, much more. Let's get to it. Here's Brooke and Marie. Brooke, Marie, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. Brooke and Marie, you're both from Equality Coaching Alliance, but would love to know a little bit more about yourselves, your background. So we'll start with Brooke. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. My name's Brooke Rundle. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm getting my doctorate in sport performance psychology, and I work in clinical mental health, and I played volleyball at UC Santa Barbara. Back in the day, was an All-American and played professionally over in Europe for a few years, and now awesome. I'm working with the Sports Equality Foundation, teaching about LGBTQ inclusion.
Cool. Marie?
My name is Marie Zidek. I'm the current head coach at DePaul University. Born and raised in Chicago. Had a chance to work at San Diego a while, and I have competed in the gym that Brooke played in. I always joke, though, that my mom was an All-American. My track, I can be an All-American drill facilitator. My mom was a far better volleyball player than me, but I grew up. She's been a coach for nearly 40 years, and I had a chance to grow up in a house that just loved the game, loved sports, and the sport of volleyball has pretty much taken me all over the world. But I do have a sport physio background, so that's where I complement the love for volleyball. Been in coaching now for 15 years. The dark side, I guess the dark side's admin, but I hope no administrator. No, I'm just joking. I've been coaching now for 15 years, and what I have continued to realize is I do have a passion for helping others through using the sport of volleyball, and it's really a cool time in 2022 that we can start talking about a lot of different identities and how we can continue to bring those different identities into the sporting space. And that's something that we try to do and I try to do, and just happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that with you here, and then about your roles too here at the AVCA Convention. But really quick, I want to hear about that hook that you had in
You beat
volleyball.
me to it. I was gonna
Yeah.
bring that up.
What was that hook for you in volleyball? You know, was it walking into your mom's gym when you were younger? But what got you in the game?
Wow, we're going way back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I volleyball has been in my life as long as I can remember. My dad actually played on the Olympic team in 1968
Awesome.
back in Mexico City.
Yeah.
And my mom played volleyball at UCLA and then transferred to UCSB. So both of my parents played growing up, and I don't know. I think I just always had a volleyball around.
Just always in the family, in the genes.
It was in the genes, yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I think for me, I relate to life a lot through movement. And I just love moving. I love playing sports. And volleyball, obviously, in growing up, when you do walk into a gym and you get a chance to see, you probably watched your father and you get a chance to see people and your mom doing it at a really high level. You want to do it too, right? And so I was a little girl in diapers running around the gym, begging people to pepper with me, at 3 years old. And just floater spiking the crap out of balls at people because I was tiny. But I just think it was the hook of the movement and the synergy and the connectiveness as it relates to being a part of a great team sport. And I just think volleyball has that. I'm undersized. I was a setter and a lib when a lib became a position, but I love serving people. I love making people feel more comfortable with themselves, and that's what hooked me, was the team aspect and the physical aspect of always the off ball and on ball. It's just a very synergistic sport, and the rhythm of it, still to this day, it's why I still coach. It's the most peace I feel in my life is when I'm in a volleyball gym. And I know that's odd to say when it's 13-all in the 5th set, but it just makes me feel like the most complete version of myself.
I love that quote, just the most peace you feel just being in the gym. That's so awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, and also, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is the first ECA panel, first live ECA panel at the AVCA Convention.
It's the first live one. Yeah, we've done remotely the last 2 years, and I don't know of any conversation around LGBTQ inclusion that has happened before that. May have happened behind closed doors. I mean, as Marie and I were preparing for this, we talked about how sort of growing up, it was always a conversation that people didn't want to talk about. People told us to, not share our identity, keep that just sort of out of sight, out of mind. So to be able to have this space now where we're actually having an opportunity to talk about it, celebrate role models, it is forward progress, and it's very exciting to be a part of.
Forward progress, obviously good progress, and we also want to keep in light and keep in mind that there's a long road ahead of us, and there's a lot more that needs to happen here. So what are some of those goals? And they can be short-term, long-term, or just convention-based here that you're looking to get out of being here for these live sessions, being here to be able to have these conversations.
Yeah. We have a lot of goals. I think one of the goals is to just, first of all, just create awareness that, if you identify as LGBTQ, you're a coach, you're a player, you're not alone. There's a group of us, the Sports Equality Foundation is a network, a social network providing education, empowerment, opportunities to support each other. So you don't have to navigate this space alone. There's also to help with allyship. We want to promote and educate, coach LGBTQ inclusion at the college level, at the club level, international level, everywhere, so that LGBTQ identifying people, athletes, feel comfortable playing volleyball and bringing their whole self to the volleyball court. They don't have to show up and leave part of their identity behind or stay in the closet. And so just promoting that education and awareness to make the sport safer for the LGBTQ community.
As you have talked with each other about preparing for the presentation that you're giving, and correct me if I'm wrong, but winning the LGBTQ plus game in volleyball, is that correct? The
yeah,
title?
That's right.
Okay, awesome.
That's right.
As you guys are preparing for that, what are the kind of the talking points, or what are those discussions between yourselves and what you want to get out of that? What's the focus of that presentation?
Well, I think when Brooke first reached out, and also Kirk Walker reached out as well, I think it's kind of two-pronged. I think Brooke's done a phenomenal job of setting up the structure in the space. What I hope to bring to the panel today is shared stories. I think building a collective narrative so people know that they're not alone, and that the easiest way to feel that is to hear someone else say something and be able to identify with that statement and say, wow, okay, I have felt like that too. Okay, whew. I have found extreme comfort in knowing that. And also I think it's about, when we talk about creating spaces, it's not only on coaches, it's also on administrators and athletic departments and universities as a whole. I work in higher education, so I can really only speak to that population. But what are we doing collectively, within the whole ecosystem of collegiate athletics and within university systems, and how can we continue to drive those relationships forward in a constructive manner? And so for me, it's really about sharing strategies and ways, if people are running into obstacles, of how to continue to have bipartisanship in this process. And I know that's usually a political term, but it can be used in a lot of different ways. We need to find ways to communicate in a world where communication seemingly is becoming more extreme on both ends. So it's just continuing to find common ground and not only create space for the coaches, but really we have to start bringing in people who create those structures for us to function in those spaces. And that's been a big focus of mine the past couple years, in addition to making sure that my own space continues to be truly inclusive with language and how we, just how we structure every activity we do. And it's not going to be perfect, but we also set that expectation that an opportunity, if you do make a mistake, is an opportunity for growth. And I think that needs to continue to be the focus. It's not you have to come over here or else. I think there needs to be continued collaboration and continued bipartisanship throughout the whole ecosystem at every level.
So at the club / junior level, to be more specific too, just for reference too, I do a lot of event managing on our indoor event side, from Salt Lake City Showdown, Sunshine Classic Qualifier. I also help run our Open National Championships there too, on the adult side of things too. But when having these conversations and just trying to create that inclusive environment, trying to create that safe space for for athletes here. When someone asks, why should I take these steps? What are some of the reasonings behind that? What is the best way to formulate a response there?
Yeah, I think, especially when we're talking about at the club level, I get that question a lot, why should we do it? And the thinking behind that question is oftentimes, and we don't have anyone in our team or club that identifies as LGBTQ. And my response is always like, how do you know that? Is your club or is your program a safe space for them to come out? Because if you don't have anyone that is out in your space, statistically, then we're looking at anywhere from around 5% of people identify as LGBTQ. So statistically, that's probably not true. And what's probably more likely to be true is that the people that do identify as LGBTQ in your space don't feel safe and comfortable coming out. And so that's where really we need to back up and really start there. Have that conversation around how do we make this a safe place for people? Because right now in our country, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis. And when we have such high suicide rates among the LGBTQ youth, I'm not going to quote a number because it's always changing. But the reality is that LGBTQ athletes are twice as likely to drop out of sports more than athletes that don't identify as LGBTQ, and they're also more susceptible to mental health crisis. And so if you really care about your athletes, if you really care about the athlete or the coach, because this is a conversation about coaches too, in front of you, then that is your answer. That is the why. we need to center our athletes in our programs and center our coaches. It's really a question of humanity. Can we honor the person in front of us and respect their identity and acknowledge their identity and create a safe space to support them so that they can thrive and participate in the program? So I think that's the why for that I see for me, and maybe different for others.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I can say most coaches that I've talked to here at this convention are in it for the student athletes. That's why we coach. Very few of us make millions and millions of dollars and have fancy yachts and 15 houses, and I wish I did, but I don't. Most of us get into coaching and or teaching to serve our youth or to serve people. And with that is called the burden of leadership. You have a burden of leadership, and the burden of responsibility is to come into a space educated and able to communicate with people where they are. And that means you have to have trauma-informed training. I've gone through so many trauma-informed coaching strategy trainings. I've gone through, student child development. Where is this person at, relative to their behavioral development? Where should they be relative to this age? Or is there behavior that's sticking out that maybe is a red flag that I need to elevate to a professional? Because you're in there, you are their caretaker when they're in your space. They are your responsibility. And whether you're the most influential person in their life or not, when they're with you in that space, it is your responsibility to care for them as the entire human being that they are. You don't get to choose to just see them as an athlete, because that's what you signed up for as a coach. And so I just think it comes down to a simple acknowledgement. And now I'm getting a little competitive, a little edgy in my voice, and I understand that. But I really feel passionate that when children are in your care, you assume that burden of liability and responsibility. So you better be prepared to interact with them in a way that respects the dignity of who they are, and understand that we're not finished products, and you have a certain level of responsibility to how you communicate with them and how you continue to allow them to feel comfortable in that space. Mm-hmm. So it has very little to do with what you believe or don't believe, I think, and this is my opinion. It has very little to do what you believe, what you don't believe, what your political affiliation is, and it has everything to do with the responsibility of what you signed up for as a coach.
And talking about leadership and that responsibility, and like you mentioned, as a coach, as an educator, that's why you got into it, is to serve the youth and make that generation better, that next generation better. What are some ways that, if they're a club director's listening, a coach is listening, a teacher's listening, what are some ways they can create that inclusive environment and that safe space like you were talking about?
Sure, I'll start with some ideas on the club level. If I'm an LGBTQ athlete, the first thing I want to, when I'm looking for a club to play for, I want to know what is their policy on LGBTQ inclusion, and is this a safe place for me to play? So the first is just start with your website. Throw up a rainbow flag, maybe an inclusion statement, maybe a fan code of conduct for your gym. Those should exist anyways. That promotes inclusion and protects all athletes on the basis of sexual orientation, gender, race, everything in your space. That is your responsibility. That's going to be an indicator to me as an athlete and a parent that is a safe, or that at least they're aware and starting to take steps. And then back that up, right? So what actionable strategies? Celebrate the identities of LGBTQ players and coaches. If you're not aware of where, go to Outsports. Outsports promotes LGBTQ athletes and coaches. There's a lot of volleyball players on that site, which is great to read about. If you have an LGBTQ coach within your club or your program, don't ask them to hide their identity. Normalize it. It doesn't have to be a huge conversation. We're just asking for the same respect conversations that you would have about any other relationship. So inviting them to bring their partner to the banquet or to the tournament, and not hiding that person. So it's really just about normalizing the identities, creating space, celebrating inclusion. And then if you don't know what to do or you need help navigating this, reach out. I mean, we are a network of coaches, of educators, of advocates. Be happy to provide advice, share information, come talk to your club. We do speaking and advocacy. We've spoken with athletic departments and clubs about how to create a safer place for your program. So that is also available too. But I think, again, it just goes back to like celebrating identities and protecting that space. So,
and that's easy. That doesn't require any more time. What I hear a lot is that, hey, I'm really time crunched. I have to get through these trainings and then I have to plan practice. And a lot of these coaches have other jobs and they have families and they have other obligations. Maybe they're caring for sick family members, for example. So you have to come up with a way that respects their time and also creates the space. And in the examples that Brooke mentioned, hanging up a rainbow flag in your facility takes 10 minutes. So there are ways that there's low-hanging fruit, as I like to say. And then I do think, I know every club director out there has start of the year meetings and they have coaching handbooks and coaching philosophies. And they have, usually it's a packet of papers that goes out as well to parents, and adding in, something like this, because they already have everything else, how we're going to handle missed dues, how we're going to handle if your, child, whatever, can't play anymore or is injured, how are we going to handle that? They've already thought through all these different scenarios. So adding that would be extremely helpful, for parents, and then educating your coaches. Again, it comes back to the burden of leadership, and it needs to be part of. We get so much training on how to plan practice, and how to, and that's needed, of course, but this needs to be built in as well. How to speak with somebody, who may be trying to have a difficult conversation with you. Communication skills, trauma-informed coaching. There's plenty of trainings out there for trauma-informed coaching and for education in those realms that can make you better prepared for those situations. Because, to everyone listening, it's not if, it's when. You are going to have an athlete. I always say you coach long enough, you go through every scenario. The highs, the lows on the court, the highs, the lows off the court, you go through every scenario. And you have to continue to prepare yourself emotionally and mentally to handle these very delicate situations, because 10 minutes could affect the rest of that kid's life, how you handle these moments. And it's not always the best moments. The best moments are easy to handle. It's the hard, really hard moments. And nobody's great at that, because I'm human. Everyone's human. Everyone has emotions, and everyone has different ways of communication. And if you're not constantly preparing, I'm constantly preparing. And I'm 38 and I have been constantly preparing, but I always encounter situations where I'm like, wow, I really need to prepare for that, So I think just having a thirst to continue to prepare yourself, because again, it's human being to human being in those situations.
Right.
Is there a large variance or difference in the level of volleyball that these steps are applied to, or maybe kind of tweaked or adjusted based on the approach, like on the collegiate level or on the club level, or are we talking high school here? Does that approach change at all?
I don't think the response changes in terms of you have an LGBTQ player come out to you for the first time. The posture is that I want to encourage is just acceptance and love, right, and celebration of that identity. I don't think that posture changes. The pressures around like public that change. I think it gets harder and harder to come out publicly the more the spotlight is on an athlete or a coach. And so with that, it can become harder for folks. In terms of what you can do to promote inclusion might also change. So some colleges have started, at the pro level. In other sports, we see like pride events, right? Like a baseball game or the Dodgers or things like that. They're going to have a pride event. I haven't seen that yet in volleyball for sure, like at the pro level, but in the college level, we are seeing college teams have like a pride night at their game, and there's a lot of different things you can do. You can promote. It's a great way to promote inclusion. It's also a great way to celebrate other identities, and you can, as a university, you could partner with the LGBTQ center on campus. There's resources there. Those are ideas of things at like the college and the pro level that might be available that maybe at the club level I'm not sure of any. I haven't heard of anything like that happening.
I think the strategies do change because you have different liability issues with when you're with club in high school. Obviously you need parental permission for some things, for a lot of things. When you get to college past 18, they're adults, so there's a little bit more freedom to just run with something. So like I coach at the largest Catholic school in the country, and we hosted a pride night.
Awesome.
And so I didn't have to get anyone's permission. I just we did it, and the campus loved it. So I think that's really the only difference I can think of when it comes to strategies. Is when you deal with youth, you have to be very thorough and organized with how you present, whether it be events or because you obviously, there's just a different dynamic at play there, and you want it to be a positive experience. And to the point that Brooke said, normalizing it's interesting. So the pressure on people. So at least I'll just speak from my experience. I didn't, when I came out, or what I like to term let others in, when I let others into that part of my identity, I didn't want a big to do. I just wanted it normal. I wanted it just as normal. I wanted to hold hands with my girlfriend just like my friend would hold hands with her boyfriend. And I just wanted us to both be able to do that. And I didn't need, I can only speak from my experience, but it actually took me longer to let others in because, some people, wanted to, celebrate that like so much, like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. And I'm so like, I'm totally cool with that. And I didn't, first off, I hate when people say that, like, cool, like I'm cool with you wearing pants too. Like, sounds good. I'm glad we're both cool with normal things. But, I wanted to just be myself and not have the spotlight on. I didn't, but I know some people really enjoy that, and I want to respect that as well. So I think things change based on the environments you're in, and certainly I approach things from sometimes a liability standpoint, just because I don't want that moment for that child to go so negative because someone decides to take that moment away from that person and go in this direction because they're there's just they're responsible for their child and all that. So, I just think that thinking things through and like Brooke said, using resources that have worked, and because that moment and that space and that event needs to be really positive and not a negative thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience, and just kind of bouncing off of that with, talking about normalizing it, and everybody's different too, and want different things, different reactions. Why don't athletes feel comfortable, athletes and coaches feel comfortable coming out within their community? And maybe the answer to that might help a club director or coach or someone listening to create that inclusive environment.
I think that's a great question, and also like a really personal question in the sense that the answer is probably going to be, there may be threads of similarities, but it's going to be very different and personal for each person. I think that, I'll speak for me in that I came out very late. I came out after I was done playing professionally. And I experienced internalized homophobia, and I didn't even know what that term meant until like a couple of years ago when I started studying about the implications of that. So
really quick, could you? I don't know myself. Could you speak a little bit about what that means?
So internalized homophobia is when we think about the messaging that we receive about our identity.
Okay.
The messaging that I received about identifying as a lesbian or as non-binary growing up was that there was a lot of shame around it, and that it's something to be hidden, and that I should present as feminine and especially if I'm on a team like a UC Santa Barbara volleyball team that, showing up with my spandex and bows in my hair and presenting as feminine, and that is part of the culture. It's a culture problem, and it's the messages that we receive from media and everywhere in our life. And so growing up, I've internalized those messages and felt shame around the feeling that I did not fit in to that model. I didn't fit, and I should just keep trying to fit. And it just never really worked, and it was at the expense of my own mental health. Eating disorder is something that I had experienced that I feel very much tied to the experience of internalized homophobia. That's something that's very common among LGBTQ athletes and people in general. So there's all sorts of ways that sacrifices that we make or mental health implications is probably the more accurate way to say it, in order to culture fit. And so that was my experience of just trying to fit, and then realizing I can't do this anymore. I need to just be myself, be who I am, and get healthy. And the process of getting healthy for me was in line with the process of becoming more fully authentic. And that was an extremely empowering journey for me personally, and that is what I want to help LGBTQ youth and others, adults too, because everyone's in a different place, go on that journey of authenticity and health. So
I think it's fear of being treated differently. I think it's a blend of, it can be the environment that prohibits people from coming out or letting others in, depending upon how you want to see it. But it also can be, to what Brooke's saying, there's an internal environment as well that interacts with your environment, and it's I think it's a blend of those two things most of the time, because I really respect my athletic identity. I relate to life as an athlete, and I didn't know how to have space for more than one identity. I was a good student as well, but whatever, that I just did that. But I really wanted to be seen as an athlete when I was growing up, and I still do, which is why these 8 pounds that I'm still trying to shake from having my baby are really messing with my head right now, just to be fully honest. But I really do still value my athletic identity. And so I didn't want another identity to take over and for people to be asking me about that identity, regardless of what it was. It just happened to be lesbian in this case, because I was afraid it was going to take away from athletic identity. And to Brooke's point, I think volleyball, and this is going to be my opinion, but volleyball is a very heteronormative, it celebrates heteronormativity a lot, especially on the women's side. I don't think as much on the men's side, but I'm not a man, and I've never played men's volleyball. But I have seen it on the women's side where, it's the difference in cultures, and so I think too, it's a fear of being treated different than what you want to be seen as. It's a fear of being seen as something that you don't want it to take. And then what I figured out over time is we're a blend of a ton of identities, right? Which is what our young children are learning now, and they're going to be hopefully and my son is 18 months. I hope that he's in a world now where he can celebrate his interracial identity and celebrate all his different identities and talk about them. And the kids coming up now are way more educated than us coaches, and I'm only 38, you know? So we're entering a realm where they're coming up and they're like looking at us like, why don't you know how to have these conversations? Why don't you know these terms? You know, so I think it's a blend of the environment, but I do agree with Brooke that there's an internal pressure there that we all have to create, or we all create. And I think you have to look that in the mirror and face it at some point and acknowledge it and respect it and then try to process through it.
Yeah, and it's a dismantling. It's a dismantling of the messaging that is constantly being fed, and it sort of never stops. To me, it just feels like a journey, is something that you have to just keep working on, of rejecting messages about identity that don't belong or don't fit or are harmful. So it's a constant work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't end.
Yeah.
How can athletes and coaches, club directors, parents, spectators, anyone in this volleyball community show allyship and support and, create that safe space and help create that safe space that we're, aspiring to, kind of achieve to kind of get there.
I start with one thing. I think at a foundational level, you have to be willing to have a conversation, even if you have strong convictions that differ than someone else's convictions.
Absolutely.
You have to be willing to have a conversation with people that are different than you are. You have to be willing to, recognize where you have limitations. And you still, again, it comes back to the response. It is your responsibility in the sports space to show up in a professionalized manner. And I think the mentally framing it first, before we get to the checklist of activities, and I'm sure Brooke could write a book on that, of all the different strategies, but I think people have to check. You have to check yourself before you wreck yourself. You have to check. You have to become aware of what your own biases and opinions and convictions are, and then you have to learn how to walk into a space and have those and still respect the other, even if you do not have those same beliefs, even if you do not have those same convictions, even if you really are struggling to understand another person's identity. That's not the end goal. The end goal is not to take on another person's identity. The goal is to be able to walk into a space and build a bridge between two human beings and have a respectful discussion and a respectful thirst of learning. And I just wanted to lob that up because I think that mental frame is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you just get to the list of things and you don't account for the fact, people are just going to rip your sheet up or not. They're not going to walk into that space constructively willing to walk into it.
Be open
and I think
to
people
it,
need to humble themselves. We need to humble ourselves. I don't know everything. We may have differences, but I need to humble myself. I am not God. I am just Marie, and it's Friday and we're here having a conversation. You have to humble yourself in the bigger picture of the world. And we have to find a way to do that mentally, to frame it. So when you walk into the space, I could still leave the space and think, whatever I want to think. But there has to be a willingness to at least engage from a place of humility first.
I love what you said, and there's tons of lists and resources on like the Trevor Project and transathlete.com that you can look to, and I'm not going to go down the list of resources. We'll include some of those websites and resources in the show notes, but what I want to do is just focus, again, echo what Marie just said, which is I think you have to show up and be ready to have a conversation with a posture of curiosity. Curiosity about the person in front of you. What is informing, what are your experiences? What's informing your opinions on things? Like, let's sit down and actually learn about one another and listen to each other's story and listen to the ways in which they've hurt and listen to the ways that they are currently hurting, so that we can just start there and actually learn about one another. And then I will also add to that, as a coach or a parent or anyone in the life of an LGBTQ person, I would just say, don't rely on your loved one or your athlete to be your educator.
Right.
Do your own education. There are so many resources out there. Do your own education, and then show up and be curious in the posture of love.
And I think continuing, sorry about that.
Go ahead,
I just
please.
think going off that, language is a powerful tool. And when I'm a head coach and I'm in charge of my team, even along the recruiting process, I bring my wife into the conversation. I normalize it. I talk about my wife just like I would talk about my husband. We have a child, she's in my bio. Again, I work at the largest Catholic university in the country. DePaul University is the largest Catholic university in the country. And I have my wife and my child in my bio, which is public. So I think just continuing to show examples that there can be this bipartisan existence with entities and ecosystems in our world. And that, I think for me, I always like to see something, and this is how I've always been as an athlete, right? You want to learn a move, you watch Michael Jordan, right? If you're a basketball player, you watch Kobe, and then you go out to the playground and you try to emulate what Kobe's doing. I did the same thing in volleyball. You want to be a great volleyball player? Watch the Olympics, and watch so how's this setter doing this? I think a lot of these other things too still fall under the same umbrella. I need to go on a website, and kids do. They go on the interwebs and they look up, do you have representation, and are your coaches talking about things, regardless if you have a representative or not from that group, like Brooke is saying. But just seeing things and being able to go, oh, that's cool, her wife's in the bio, awesome. That immediately like relaxes people, and makes them feel comfortable walking into the space. So I just think people need to continue to see examples, which again is the low-hanging fruit part of allyship. I mean, reposting. I mean, social media is such a huge thing, and can touch so many people so quickly. It impacts so many people so quickly. It takes nothing to retweet an encouraging message. I also come back to the humility piece of being willing to say, wow, I didn't understand this population. I didn't understand how to treat this person, and I made a mistake. I blew it. And I've had that conversation too. I'm part of the community. I blew it. I did not handle that well. I'm just going to be the first one to own it. And I'm willing to have conversations to get better. I think too, just being able to say that sets up a space.
Yeah, I love that. My wife is in my bio as well, and it is so important to me to have that and to have that space for that. I also just want to add believing who the person is they say they are. So when an athlete comes to you and says, this is my identity, or a child or any loved one, any person, just simply believing that they are who they say they are can be so empowering.
We've touched on it a lot, and just with what you were just saying with having conversations with people who realize they made a mistake and they own it, social media, but what are some of the wins that you've witnessed in the inclusion space? That could be just through your work with the AVCA, or even this weekend maybe. What are some of the wins that you've seen?
Well, us being here feels like a big win. Having this conversation in this space is a really big win. Being able to have a conversation around LGBTQ inclusion in person at the AVCA Convention feels like another big win. Celebrating out athletes is a huge win, and I want us. My hope for the future is that we continue to do a better job of supporting the LGBTQ out athletes and coaches that exist within the volleyball community at every level, from club all the way to the national team, because we are here. You are not alone, and we want to support and continue. So anytime that an identity is celebrated, to me that feels like a win.
I think when I got into coaching in 2007, I was one of the only out coaches in the country. And I've only been in D1, so I can't speak to D2, D3 because I don't have that data. But when I came in 2007, I wasn't even out yet, out or in, depending. I didn't really go through that process until, I want to say, probably 2011, 2012. So it took a long time for me to internally, face a lot of those things before I was ready to externally, deal with the rest of it. And now in 2022, I mean, at every level of volleyball, people are publicly posting their wedding photos, to their husbands, wives, and I just think that the win for me is the increased amount of coaches that have normalized major life events like weddings. Obviously, the Supreme Court vote helped with that back in 2013, or what was that, 2014?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. And then just got signed into law last week.
So this is a sidebar.
Very big win.
I'll share this quick story. So here's the win for me. 2013, I was in the state of New York. And at that point in time, only 5 states had legalized same-sex marriage. It had not been legalized at a federal or protected at a federal level. And correct me if I'm using these words incorrectly. I'm only speaking from my experience, but 5 states. And so I was living in New York, one of those 5 states. And I was working for a head coach who got let go. And I knew then, as an assistant, I was going to have to move. Well, my girlfriend and I, we're like, well, shit, what do we do if we move to one of the other states that doesn't? So we got married in our living room, just in case, the Supreme Court was voting on it. What if the Supreme Court voted down or didn't vote to protect it? And we wanted to be officially married. So we did, we went to City Hall and got the marriage certificate, got married in our living room. And then the next day I played West Virginia, I practiced, I still had my makeup on, and then we went and played a volleyball match. And that, again, that's the beautiful bleeding of the identities, but we had to do that. Thankfully I ended up moving to California, which I think was one of the other states where it was protected, and the Supreme Court voted it anyway, which was great. But I was put in that scenario, now I wouldn't have to do that. I could choose, I wouldn't have to be like, hey, on a Thursday night, we got to get married quick, because I don't know where my next job's going to be. But it was just such a beautiful experience. But I say that because now in 2022, I have plenty of coaching colleagues that it's out there, it's on their socials, they're posting these big life events with their significant others, with their spouses. And that for me is the biggest win. Whereas when I was going through it, I was exceptionally alone and super isolated because I was one of one, or one of maybe two. And that was, the first one through the wall is always bloodied. And it was not a pleasant experience externally, hearing from people that I was committing career suicide for doing that. But I pleasantly stuck with it. Obviously, I'm still married. But now in 2022, those same people aren't going through those conversations anymore. And maybe they are, but it's not at such a huge level, because you have student athletes and admins going to these weddings now, celebrating that person in that space, at least at the college level, asking about the significant others. I work at DePaul. People ask about my wife. Again, largest Catholic school in the country, and my athletic department set that standard from day one when I got there. Hey, how's your girlfriend? Hey, how's your wife? How's Steph doing? And I just think okay, so that continues to reaffirm, okay, this is normal. I am in a normal relationship, because you got these things, messages that feed the beast in another way.
Yeah, the messaging, it used to feel like the messaging was you need to choose between your identity and your career. You can't have both.
Especially in collegiate athletics.
Yeah, and that is something that we're trying to change and is changing. Also, I think that the Sports Equality Foundation has just done an incredible job of creating a network of LGBTQ coaches and athletes. So that to me is a huge win. When I look at our TikTok page, there's 17,000 plus people.
Awesome.
I'm just like, wow, that we are not alone. And I think that to me feels like a huge win. So just continuing the conversations and being supportive of one another is something to celebrate. It's a lot easier to be an ally than it is to be a hater.
For sure.
So
I need to go find
join
that.
us.
I need to go find that TikTok page now. That's awesome.
What words of support do you have for somebody who may have recently came out or is having a difficult time with the reactions to the situation? It could be it can be something it could be somebody coming out or anything along those lines. But as you mentioned before, it's not always all accepting. What words of support do you have there, or encouragement, or just suggestions that do you have for that person?
I would say give people a chance. And I understand that's really hard to experience when you're having an intimate moment with letting a part of your identity out of the world, and somebody steps on that and treats it in a pretty aggressive way and or hurtful way. But I think within that moment, it's really important to remember that there is a chance for this person to grow because they're seeing this part of my identity. And that's not your responsibility. Their growth is not your responsibility, but you're now in a position where if you can continue to that's why I let that person in, continue to be who you are, and just let that person into this part of your identity and truly who you are. And people will, if you give people a chance, people can surprise you. When I told my grandmother, who at the time was 99 years old, She's lived through, World War, the Dust Bowl, everything that happened in the 60s, you name it, she's been through it. She was immediately accepting. I didn't think that was going to be the case. So sometimes you have to give people a chance. And then when I, was navigating the professional space and some very close people to me in the career space and my family, were telling me you're committing career suicide. And that was not an easy thing to hear. But those same people, fast forward 8-9 years later, are, better people because they've learned to accept me who I am. And now they've changed their view. And they are their heart is way more open because I've just continued to be Marie, And so I think just when you let others in, their reaction's on them. That reaction's on them. And while it can be painful, and certainly it sometimes will be, I think not taking their reaction you can't internalize their reaction, and you can continue to be consistently yourself and give that person a chance to grow because they've met someone like you who has this identity. And now your intersection of meeting them has given them a chance to evolve. Just like in some other ways, you have to evolve, I just think giving human beings a chance. For me, that gave me hope. That gave me a glimmer of hope to hold on to, because the hurt was it was very isolating, especially because I love volleyball and I wanted to be a coach, so to, like Brooke said, be forced to choose between who you are and what you want to be. So I think giving people a chance, because people will and can evolve. Human beings can evolve. Nobody is statically who they are right now for the rest of their life. You can evolve. And so that gave me hope. And like I said, fast forward 8-9 years later, I've gotten those same people are speaking very differently now and are very accepting. And now they're very accepting to others who are having similar identities, which is great.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. I think that trusting that wherever people are at, they can and will change if you continue to stay in a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. I just want to add to that if it is a harmful relationship, mm-hmm. and if it becomes if it becomes dangerous for you, for your mental health, for your identity, then reach out and get the help that you need. Get out of this situation. Do whatever you need to do to protect your mental health and to protect yourself. And there are mental health resources available for that. Trevor Project is a great resource.
That are also free, right?
That are free.
Resources.
That are free.
That's important to understand.
Yes, thank you for that. That are free mental health resources, community
mm-hmm.
support groups.
Mm-hmm.
Again, our nonprofit is a great place to start protecting yourself and getting yourself out of a dangerous situation and doing whatever you have to do to be able to stay true to yourself and be authentic and navigate that place. And maybe when you're stronger and you have that support system and that network, then you can continue to revisit those relationships and stay in those relationships when you have support. But getting the support you need, getting community, again, I'm speaking straight to LGBTQ athletes and coaches that are out there that might be feeling alone. You're not alone. So join us, join others, get support. You don't have to navigate this alone, and don't stay in a situation that is dangerous for you. I hope you can get yourself to a place that is safe and empowering, and hopefully over time those relationships will grow and change.
That's one thing that coaches can do. When you're listening to this podcast, you can do it right now on your phone or your computer. You can tabulate those resources and have them. So if you feel like in a situation you do encounter a conversation with your athlete and you're really worried about them, I'm a mandatory reporter for assault, for sex-based crimes, for harassment. I go through training on training on training. I have a one-sheeter on my phone, a little notes tab in my Google Notes with numbers and a checklist of who I need to call when I encounter that situation. That's easy. For coaches to get prepared. That is one thing that coaches, I just thought of that, you mentioning it, going online and getting, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, so I have the situation, an athlete is in danger and I'm worried about them. What are the free resources out there and how do I handle it? Here's the number, here's the website. You got to have a plan for that situation because you're going to have to act you do have to act. Again, you're under the burden of responsibility for that person.
Yeah, I love that we're having this conversation here, and kind of goes with, and it might sound like an easy answer, but how do we keep having these conversations outside of Pride Month, outside of National Coming Out Day? For anyone listening, how do we keep having these conversations the whole year around?
Well, I feel like I do have these conversations the whole year.
Right, yep.
But I think, one thing that I would like to see in the future is that we're bringing LGBTQ athletes and coaches into spaces to talk about something other than just the LGBTQ identity and advocacy. Yeah. That we're recognizing, Marie as a coach and myself as a sport performance consultant in mental health and performance, and having these conversations, and it's just being normalized. And so just our presence then is an act of continuing, an act of inclusion. And not just with us, but all of the athletes and the coaches that that I may not know that are within our volleyball community. So that to me is what inclusion looks like, and normalization looks like. And yes, continuing to have conversations around DEI and inclusion are extremely important, and they should not be looked at as just like a just check the box. Here's the token conversation. Oh, we did our DEI training. No, let's examine how our identities, all parts of our identity, inform team cohesion, inform performance, inform abilities to inform where we have tournaments, where we job offers, all of those things, opportunities. It's for someone with a marginalized identity, it is a part of every conversation and decision that has to be made. And so how can we can just continue to normalize that and to bring those conversations into every conversation.
One of the 5 pillars, so at DePaul, all head coaches and our athletic department is built around 5 pillars. Academic excellence, building our DePaul brand, competitive excellence, developing and equipping future leaders, and then obviously external philanthropy and community outreach. And under those pillars, we have quite a bit of leadership development for our student athletes that we do. And then under that, as volleyball athletes, I do quite a bit of leadership development. It needs to be added to those structures. These conversations, it's not just about, let's work on our volleyball communication on the court so we make sure if a serve is put in between a seam, I know if Brooke has it or I have it. Brooke was the All-American. She's probably going to take it. But, it needs to be become a part, an ingrained part of, again, the ecosystem and the structure of what's already happening. Nothing new needs to go in, again, because you say new and people go, I don't have time. But you have built-in structures. Every team and club and high school has a built-in structure of how they operate their program. And within that structure, you're already doing a lot of these things. This topic, and a couple of other topics that are important in today's day and age need to be meshed in there. So we're not only talking about how do you handle 13 all in the 5th set. We're also addressing a bullet point of that. Leadership development is addressing, marginalized identities, marginalized communities. And then under that, we're talking about, the LGBTQIA community. We're talking about, racism right now in this country. We're talking about those things as well. Like, we have to start having those conversations. That has to be a part of our leadership development. These parts of it can't just be, how do I make the best athlete possible? Because that's why we're here, is your volleyball identity is not your only identity you're walking into the gym with. You still got to win games, but you're already doing something in your club, in your high school. You're already doing leadership development in some manner, and you've already carved out time for that. So this just needs to be embedded in there, what you're already doing.
Brooke, Marie, this has been incredible. I'm glad we got to sit down, and you guys both have a busy schedule, I'm sure, a lot of people you're mingling with, but really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with us and share your stories and your expertise with us. I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of it, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
It's just really a pleasure and honor to be here with you all.
where can people find you, follow you, communicate with you if they have any questions?
Yeah. Sports Equality Foundation has a Facebook group called the Equality Coaching Alliance, and a GoSpace for athletes as well. We have a new app that we are sharing. We'll include it all in the show notes.
Yep.
Headstrong Mindset is the name of my mental performance consulting website. All the resources are going to be on that LGBTQ resource page there as well.
You can find me on my socials, Marie Zidek, on pretty much any platform besides TikTok. I wasted way too much time on that during COVID, had to delete it. And you also can find my email is on the DePaul University website, and so is my phone number.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And TikTok as well, right?
I personally...
Maybe we need to make a TikTok.
We should make a
TikTok. That would be fun.
AVCA TikTok?
Okay.
I can do that, but...
You do really get lost in it, though.
I do, and then I started trying to make all these videos. And,
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much again, and hopefully we can have you on again in the future.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Another incredible conversation that we were able to capture at the AVCA convention. Man, I just think back to that weekend. It was such a crazy, hectic, busy, but incredible weekend of just all volleyball across the board. And that included our conversation with Brooke and Marie. One of my highlights from that weekend, from what I remember, and I just felt like, by the end of it, felt like we could just keep going and talk more with them and just get more information from them and just really dive deep into that. So hopefully we can have them back on, or even more experts in the space back on, to continue this conversation, because it's such an important topic, and one that should be, we talk about this, offline all the time. We want to continue these conversations ongoing throughout the year, and not just once or twice a year, with Pride Month or National Coming Out Day. We want to continue that conversation, and hopefully, down the road, we can just bring in more experts to continue that conversation, and, just get more information, more resources, how we can better the community for sure.
Absolutely. And already thinking about 2023 of just hope we can, bring the podcast to, 2023 in Tampa, like 2022. But I mean, like you said, once everything got started, once that 10+ hour drive from Denver, Colorado Springs to Omaha was done, once we were there, and it was just such a wealth of information and networking, and just, again, first time being there, just taking it all in on top of that, and just, seeing what went right, what went wrong, and, talking to these amazing individuals. And I think this is one of our, final interviews that we're, kind of posting here on the podcast, on the show here. And it's just, now we want to do it again and again and again and again, and just, again, continue conversations like you said, but also, make the progress, not only make the progress and continue the conversations, but do the work that's required to, support these conversations, to support these individuals that we interview, and, hear their side of things, and, just do what needs to be done.
Yeah, definitely.
If that makes sense.
No, that did. Yeah. Get the information and then make the action plan, put it into action afterwards too. So yeah, definitely understood what you were saying there, but really appreciate Brooke and Marie for telling some of their personal stories as well.
Absolutely.
I hope our listeners were able to connect with those and get a lot out of that, to hopefully bring back to their clubs and their lives as well. But like I said, we're really hopeful to have more experts into this space come onto our podcast down the road and continue this conversation. Most importantly, for listeners, whether you're athletes, coaches, parents, if you have questions or looking for additional information or resources, check out headstrongmindset.com. You can also check out thetrevorproject.com, lbgthotline.org. More resources can be found in our show description as well, or on our USA Volleyball, our very own USA Volleyball DEI page at usavolleyball.org/DEI.
Once again, just a huge thank you again to Brooke and to Marie for sitting down with us. I'm not sure how many of you have been to an AVCA convention, but like we mentioned in past episodes and, a few seconds ago talking about this, but it is jam-packed with incredible speakers all around. So the fact that they took time out of their busy schedule was so awesome. And you can follow Brooke and Maria on social media. They're both open to answering questions from you. So definitely reach out and learn more. See how you can support them. See what you guys what you guys can continue to do for each other, and just continue to make progress towards the right foot. Make the right foot forward. Just right. That little.
You got there. You got there.
Man, my voice is gone, and I'm trying. But again, such an amazing sit-down conversation, and just a lot of personal and just informational stories there. Such a great conversation for sure. So thank you.
Definitely. Let's move on to upcoming events. We have the Ron John Beach and Board Fest, March 11th through the 12th in Cocoa Beach, Florida. The Mad Sand Juniors on March 11th in Plano, Texas. The SCVA Red Rock Rave Girls National Qualifier Week 2, March 11th through the 13th at Mandalay Bay Convention Center in Las Vegas. The SSOVA March Treasure Island, March 12th. A couple marches in that title there. A little repetitive, that's okay. On March 12th in Treasure Island, Florida. Mid-East Girls National Qualifier Week 1 on March 17th through the 19th in Indianapolis. The Northern Lights Girls National Qualifier Week 2, March 17th through the 19th in Minneapolis. The Mid-East Girls 18s National Qualifier, March 17th through the 19th, also in Indianapolis. Good luck to everyone competing in those events. Shout out to all the USAB regions setting up and hosting those events. More details and all upcoming events can be found at usavolleyball.org. Now, on to the pro side of things. We have several pro events going on in March. I think we're kind of, as we said, we're in the heat of it now. We're also in the heat of pro season too for our USA teams. But starting with the NORCECA U19 Boys Continental Championship, March 11th through the 19th in Guatemala. The Beach Pro Tour Challenge in La Paz, March 16th through the 19th in La Paz, Mexico. The Beach Pro Tour Futures, and let's see if I can get this, Mount Maunganui. I think I got that.
I think you got that.
March 16th through the 19th.
My players are saying.
In New Zealand. That's right. And lastly, we have the Beach Pro Tour Elite 16 in the big Mexico. That's March 22nd through the 26th. And that's it right now for March for pro events. But let's hear about some club reminders from you, Clarence.
In the thick of qualifying season, like we just mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Sunshine Qualifier is a wrap, but we do have Salt Lake City Showdown coming up April 8th through the 10th and April 14th through the 16th. Registration is still open, but it is closing very, very soon. We are also getting very, 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 very close to that USA Volleyball Show mug cameo right there. Love that. Oh, yeah. But yes, we're also getting very close to that registration refund deadline. So if you're a team that is in the system right now and have not completed your registration requirements, meaning you have entered into the event, paid the registration fee, and taken care of your housing requirements through our partner, Team Shopping Source, and to do that very, very, very quickly, or you will be dropped from the tournament. And if you're looking to add, you need to get in and do those requirements ASAP. We also have registration open for our Open National Championship, which is for our adults, lovely, lovely, lovely competitive adults in Dallas, Texas from May 26th through the 31st. Again, good luck to all teams traveling and competing in our national and regional qualifiers. Thank you to all the regional commissioners that are also helping put on their qualifiers in their specific regions. It's a lot of hard work, but it's got to be done, and we're doing it to the best of our abilities, and you guys are doing it to the best of your abilities too. So thank you for that. More information on dates, divisions, deadlines can always be found at usavolleyball.org.
Remember, listeners, you can rate and review, share with friends, family, teammates. It really helps this podcast grow and reach new listeners. And now check out our video episodes as well, going up on our website and YouTube channel. We thank you for your continued support. Do you know a club that should be featured, or an athlete, parent, coach who should be featured? You'd like us to share their story on this podcast? You can email us at theusabshow@usab.org. Leave us feedback there as well. We love to hear from you. We want to hear about any future topics, conversations that you want us to have here on the podcast. But until next time, you are listening to the USA Volleyball Show, the official podcast of USA Volleyball.
This has been the USA Volleyball Show with Clarence Hughes and Stephen Munson, produced by Curtis Ward. Our content producer is Laura Fawcett. Our marketing lead is Bree Jaycox. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to rate and review. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the USA Volleyball Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.